turn, oh turn, turn, oh turn, oh turn. Turn from violence, turn, turn, turn from violence, turn, oh turn.
Turn from violence, turn, turn, turn from violence, turn, oh turn.
Turn from war, turn, oh turn, turn from war, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn from war, turn, oh turn, turn from war, turn, oh turn.
Turn, oh turn, oh turn, turn, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn, oh turn, oh turn, turn, oh turn.
Turn from hatred, turn, turn, turn from hatred, turn, oh turn.
Turn from hatred, turn, turn, turn from hatred, turn, oh turn.
And turn from fear, turn, oh turn, turn from fear, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn from fear, turn, oh turn, turn from fear, oh turn, oh turn.
And turn to peace, turn, oh turn, turn to peace, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn to peace, turn, oh turn, turn to peace, oh turn, oh turn.
And turn to truth, turn, oh turn, turn to truth, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn to truth, turn, oh turn, turn to truth, oh turn, oh turn.
And turn to wisdom, turn, oh turn, turn to wisdom, turn, oh turn.
Turn to wisdom, turn, oh turn, turn to wisdom, turn, oh turn.
And turn to justice, turn, oh turn, turn to justice, turn, oh turn.
Turn to justice, turn, oh turn, turn to justice, turn, oh turn.
Turn, oh turn, oh turn, turn, oh turn, oh turn.
Turn, oh turn, oh turn, turn, oh turn, oh turn.
And we shall be
we're coming off of a day, our day of silence, Friday. I hope it's a meaningful day for everybody. I hope it's a refreshing day. I thought it'd be good for us to read a little bit from Thomas Merton tonight, who was well familiar with silence as a monk, perhaps the most famous monk in the 20th century, at least in the West. Keep forgetting that we're only half, not even of the world. There's a whole other. Anyway, he was pretty well known. Do you all know the name Thomas Merton? No. What do you know about him, just to sum it up?
So he's a monk.
The monk.
So we know that.
Yes.
He's
Not a monkey.
familiar with silence.
No. What's that?
He's familiar with silence.
Yes, but I just said that.
I know.
All we know. I find him, I'm not sure the right word, just very authentic. He speaks in simple words,
Mm.
trying to convey some of his mystical experiences, but he's not self-promoting at all.
Right.
He's just trying to share what he's realized or experienced, and I really
Mhm.
appreciate that about him.
Mhm.
Yeah, he somehow realized that modern day monasteries were not reading the mystics and were not doing contemplative prayer and so forth, and it was meaningful to him, so he was really responsible for bringing a lot of it back from, I guess, centuries. And also to make contact with religions other than Christian, to have meaningful relationships with Buddhists and Hindus and anybody else you can think of.
Isaac, did you want to chime in?
Nope.
Nope, okay. So, Thomas Merton, let me tell you some of the juicy details first.
Mhm.
He was a wild child, meaning as a young man, he was just wild. And he got himself into what we call trouble. He fathered a child out of wedlock. Do we still use that phrase? Out of
Not
wedlock?
so much, but-
Kind of an old-fashioned. I use it. Some old-fashioned. Anyway, he fathered the child, and then later on, he didn't. I think the child and the mom actually died in a car crash. I'll have to double check that. But at any rate, his life started as a young man in a way that was not very monastic, you could say. And he felt that he wanted to explore faith, wasn't quite sure how to do it, so he applied, he became Catholic, and felt that that was okay, but not quite good enough. He was an ornery man, let's put it that way, okay? He was a straight shooting ornery guy. He didn't pull any punches, and he felt that a lot of Christians were basically full of shit. Okay. And he wanted to explore the faith, but more than just going to church, whatever that means. He didn't feel that was very satisfying. So he decided he wanted to become a monk, and like a Marine, you know, but in the spiritual sense. He was going to go for the hardest thing he could. He decided initially to join the Franciscans, but the Franciscans rejected him because he was very honest with them, and he said, "I fathered a child out of wedlock," and they said, "Oh, okay, goodbye. Sorry, you can't be part of our group." He was crushed. It's devastated, really. And so after he recovered, he then decided to join the most strict order possible to see what they would say. And he was very honest with them, told them about his past and everything. They said, come on aboard. So he was accepted into the Marines of the monastic orders, the Cistercians. Okay? They're tough. 9 times a day they pray. They get up like at 2 in the morning, they're at 6 as well. They're tough. And so he became a Cistercian, or a Trappist, sometimes called. And he continued to be an ornery guy. He found it difficult to live in community. He was very much an individualist, you could say. But he hung in there, he persisted, and he became a teacher in the monastery. And woe to the students that had him as their teacher, okay, because he would look right at you and tell you what he saw. And some people found that problematic. He continued in the monastery, but more and more he became a kind of semi-hermit. He loved his solitary life, his solitude. And so he moved more and more into a hermitage on the monastery grounds, but with the permission of his abbot, he decided that that would be his life, and he began to write more and more as a monk. And at first he thought he had to give it up as a monk, give up stuff. He said, I got to give up my... He was a writer, by the way, I forgot to mention that. He loved to write. So when he entered the monastery, he thought, I can't write anymore, I'm just going to give it up. His abbot said, no, you're a good writer. Keep writing. So he did, and it turns out that it's right.
Yeah.
He's written a lot of books. But more than just writing books, he's, I think, conveyed a beauty and depth of a tradition that needed to be recovered. So he continued to live in a hermitage on the monastery grounds. One of the juicy details of his life is that he had an affair with a woman who was his nurse while he was sick. And a lot of people think, bad Thomas. But he spoke about it openly, freely, and he continued to be a monk. He broke off the relationship, and I guess what I'm trying to say is he was very human.
Mhm.
He was a very human person. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't, and at the end of his life, his one final journey was to go to a conference in Thailand, and it was an interfaith conference, and that was another thing that people did not like about him. Some people liked it, some didn't, but he felt that he needed, as a Christian, to be in conversation with people of other faith traditions, not just his own, and not to convert them, but to learn from them, and to experience the dialogue of people who care deeply about the interior life. And he came to the conclusion that they were seeking the same thing, which was freedom. And he was real big on that. Freedom, interior freedom, like we sang tonight, turn, oh turn from violence. He was real big on that. Turning from violence, turning from fear, turning from hate, all the stuff that somehow becomes a prison in us. Anger, greed, all the stuff that becomes a prison in us. Fear. And so he devoted his life really to teaching, helping people to experience greater freedom. And he was convinced that silence was the key way to that freedom. It's like not often, if people would say here, if they would come here and they'd say, why do you guys spend so much time in silence? Merton would say, to be more free. Okay, to be more free. Free from the shite that keeps us down, and free to love, basically. More and more and more. Okay? To be more self-aware of what we're thinking, feeling, what we're saying, and to be free so that in our conversations we are more loving and more sensitive. And that's why we do silence, Merton would say. So his little book here, I think, is really valuable. And it's his talks. He gave a retreat at the Abbey of Gethsemane, where he lived most of his adult life. And this little book is basically a recording of his talks to a group of women, which is really interesting, religious women or sisters. And so his life ended suddenly. He was electrocuted. He was at this conference, and something to do with a fan, you know, and he was electrocuted and died. And, you know, all sorts of people want to think something about that, but we won't go there. So we'll just pass it around and read bits of Thomas Merton, this ornery, lovable monk who, if you were to visit him in his hermitage, first thing he would say to you is, "Would you like a beer?" And then you'd sit down and you'd have a beer with Thomas Merton, and he would listen to you, and it would be a lovely thing. So here we go. Let's see how much of this we might get through. Not too much. Okay, so this is Thomas Merton talking in a retreat to a group of women who are sisters. He says, "In the contemplative life, we all face the question, what are we supposed to do? One thing we can do is come together like this as sisters and brothers in Christ and let happen what has not happened before. To let happen what has not happened before. This kind of searching experience. Certainly, what we are doing now is what we're supposed to do. Getting together in a quiet place where we can talk and think and pray. An important key word is presence. We want to be present to each other. And then trust what happens. We want to be present to each other and trust what happens. If you just read my books, you don't really know me. So you better get a look at the real thing." This was this kind of humorous directness. Presence is what counts. It's important to realize that the church itself is presence in its best form. And so is the contemplative life. Community is presence, not an institution. We've been banking on the ability to substitute institution for the reality of presence. It won't work. Okay. There is a kind.
There's a kind of Pentecost in miniature whenever there is church. Pentecost means, quote, new life. And that means changes in our lives. But changes are not easy. New life is disturbing. The basic experience of religious in our time has been the struggle of knowing in their hearts that something is asked of them by God. And yet, somehow, they are being prevented from doing it. It is true that a lot of young people who come to religious life feel that they have to leave it in order to find God. It's true that a lot of young people who come to religious life feel they have to leave it in order to find God. For some, this is probably true, even though for others it may be an illusion. all of us are trying to sort out things in our lives. It's going to take a long time. The answers are not there.
Take the question of silence, for example, our specialty here at the Trappist Monastery. Silence can be a great problem or a great grace. When it becomes too formalized, it ceases to be a source of grace and becomes a problem because it is no longer a helping presence. For too long, the rule of silence was a means of being absent from one another. This sets up a contradiction and people suffer from it. A community can't exist on those terms. Contradictions are a part of life, but systematic frustration of cultural values is another matter. A person has to be able to get along without a lot of distracting things in the culture, naturally, but that doesn't mean we should never be able to hear a symphony. We Trappists have a bad reputation for that kind of thing. Our silence tended to operate in that mechanical way. Silence almost meant you had to pretend that no one else was present. You were silent because you were more or less excluding people.
When people come together, there's always some kind of presence, even the kind that can give a person an ulcer. What we have to do is arrange things in such a way that the presence is a positive and not a negative experience. This means we may have to talk more in order to learn how to be present in silence in a positive way. There has to be enough communication so that silence can be a grace. That kind of silence demands a deeper love, and until that much love is developed, there's no point in pretending that the love is there when it isn't. The justification of silence in our life is that we love one another enough to be silent together. Once that we get into the depths of community life, we realize that there is a very special duty and grace in being silent together, but we don't arrive at this by excluding others or treating them as objects. It happens gradually as we learn to love. A friend of mine, a Dutch psychoanalyst, Joost A. Merleau, was a very fine manuscript on silence. He points out that we have to keep readjusting our understanding and practice of silence so that it can remain a definite value. We must recognize that we have been misusing it, but we also see that we need to keep it for its real value. We need to renew it. We renew our silence not by going around talking to people endlessly or by giving up our way of life, but by letting the quiet be impregnated with the presence and with light. Then it's life-giving.
Our being is silent, but our resistance is noisy. Our actions tend to be noisy, but when they stop, there is a ground of silence which is always there. Our job is to be in contact with that ground and to communicate from that level, and not just to be in contact with the stream of activities which are constantly moving. We have to keep silence alive for other people, as well as for ourselves, because no one else is going to do it. We may think people don't care about this, but in fact they care about it very much. Silence is greatly symbolic in our time. Even there's talk about contemplative life and its values not making much sense to people today, or not being much of interest to them. This is not true. Many people are looking to contemplation and meditation for meaning. You've heard of the Beatles, I'm sure. What are they doing now in 1967? They are seeing a yogi for instruction in meditation.
That indicates a bit of the datedness of the writing. Yeah. It's 1967, kids.
The world is full of people who are looking for meditation and silence, and most of them are not Catholic. This is true in Russia and in the Iron Curtain countries. We had a postulant here, a Hungarian refugee who was a seminarian. A friend of his, a communist in Yugoslavia, an engineer and a world chess champion, had been brought up with no religion whatsoever. But he was assiduously practicing yoga because he felt the need of some kind of interior silence. Probably the biggest religious revival in the world is going to happen in Russia because Russian scientists are very interested in the question of religion and God, more so than a lot of people in Christian countries. In other words, people recognize these values. They know such values ought to be. Time and again, people come here, often of no particular faith, who are sensitive to the fact that here is a place of silence, and a place, presumably, where silence is understood and valued. Therefore, it is terribly important for us to be clear about our silence. The last thing we should do is get rid of it. We just need to balance things in a better way, allowing necessary talk, but also providing time for people to be alone and quiet when they need it.
Thank you.
This
So maybe that's a good place to stop. Any response to the reading tonight? We can read more tomorrow night.
Lucky to have these same silence is a way of still being together, healing and loving, but it's not being looked at as like being a hermit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not isolating.
Mm.
It's for a whole other purpose. So I like how he expresses that.
Yeah.
I like the way he describes that one way it can be a problem and one way it can be grace. And I think for us here, I like what we've been doing, partly because it's also flexible. And we make room for things that just happen sometimes. And, stop being silent for a little while longer. I think that's good.
Any other thoughts?
I like how he talks about kind of solitude and silence being an active part of life, something that you choose as a structure, and how that can be beneficial.
Mm.
Like yesterday during our silence time, I also did a solitude day.
Mm-hmm.
And during the prayer times up here, I took those times to focus on specific introspective things downstairs,
Mm.
deep emotional stuff at those same
Mm.
beats.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be, even though solitude and silence can seem like nothing, you can make it a structured, purposeful thing. Like, it's not the absence of something. There is a lot going on, but it goes on in that special place
Mm.
that you only get in silence and solitude. And I like that.
Yeah. So, just to pick up on that for a moment. What if we were to ask ourselves this question? How can I deepen my experience of silence? How can we deepen our experience of silence? If silence is meant to nurture us, if it's meant to connect us to our core, let's say, and to bring about a deeper communion with our own heart, our own soul, mind, and with God, however we understand God. if that's the purpose of it, and I believe it is, to create greater freedom within. The question for me is, how can I experience silence in a way that is taking a step further, the next step, a step close in, as David Weinman said. In other words, if we simply say, silence is lovely, silence is kind, silence is, it's a good experience, and we put a period there, then I think we miss something. And what we miss is the introspection. I slow down that word because what I'm hearing is the seeing within. That's what it means, right? Introspection.
Right.
To see within. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that the silence that we practice here is meant to be a kind of movement toward, and at some point we need to be able to articulate what it is we're letting go of, what it is we're embracing, because that's the basic dance. We're encountering some depth of reality in ourselves, and invariably that requires, or at least invites us to let go of whatever stuff we don't need that hinders us in this life. And we need to be aware of that, specifically what the stuff is. And then to move toward, and like my piano student today, he was so eager to move toward, he wants to get through the book, which is a great goal for a student, right? He wants to just plow through it, right? Let's get to it, let's get to this, And I had to gently, but clearly, firmly even, rein him back and to say, okay, that's the goal. How do we get to the goal? Slowly. Okay? Because he wants to be able to play fast, And I tried to explain to him that you can play anything beautifully if you slow it down enough. Okay? And he said, oh, okay. And he's a delightful person, and wants to, very quickly get there. Contemplation is like playing the piano. The only way to get there is slow practice. Slow. And specific. This dear man who's taking lessons is missing his pinky finger. So he's having to adjust certain things. And it's very specific. He has to be aware of his pinky finger. And that takes a contemplative approach. And so he's doing tremendously well. And so today's lesson is pretty much slow down. You'll get there, but go slow. Take the next step. And so I would just encourage us to consider for ourselves, not talking about it, but having that introspection that you mentioned, Sarah, to really take the time in silence to look within. Spend time with yourself and see and let go of what you're being asked to let go of. Embrace what you're being asked to embrace. And that'll appear. It will become evident in conversations. It'll become more evident in the way we are with each other, in the various ways that we're together. We won't be so eager and urgent to say what I think, but it'll be more like, oh, tell me more about that. I'd really like to hear what you have to say about that. That kind of curiosity, because we're more free. We don't feel the need, the urgency to state my view, kind of a thing. That's what Merton is getting at in this retreat that we're now joining him on. So we'll close with a song. little Irish lullaby. It's not in words. At one point I said to my student, just sing it. He said, but there's no words. I said, it's okay, just sing it. This has no words, but we'll sing it. And it's vocables. Ooh la loo la lie. That's all it is. Ooh la loo la lie. 5 lines. I'll sing it once and then join me in the singing. Ooh la loo la lie. Ooh la loo 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 la lie. Ooh la loo 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 la lie. Ooh la loo 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 la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. Last time. Ooh la loo la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. Ooh la loo la loo la lie. At the close of this day, we give thanks for your great love. And in particular tonight we pray for the Hefner family on the death of their dear beloved son, brother, Brad. May you bring comfort, solace. May these days be filled with comfort and solace. And may Brad be sung home by angels.